I'm Gbola Amusa. It's my pleasure to introduce our next guest from Forge Biologics. We have Dr. Tim Miller, who's co-founder, president, and CEO, and we have Dr. David Dismuke, who's chief technical officer. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us today. Good to be here.
Great. So the format of this session is roughly 40 minutes. There's a video that'll start the session, followed by Q&A after that. So with that, I'll hand it to Tim and David.
Thanks, Gbola. My name is Tim Miller. I'm one of the co-founders and president and CEO, PhD in pharmacology, and have been in gene therapy companies for about the past 20 years or so, going back into the 90s, where I helped out originally on the bench, doing a lot of plasmid DNA constructs for cystic fibrosis. And then my most recent company was Abeona Therapeutics, where I was one of the co-founders and led the company as CEO for a number of years up until about mid-2018. So looking forward to telling you more about Forge and what we're doing here and how we're helping try to find new solutions for clients and for patients. I'll turn to David.
I'm David Dismuke, and the CTO here at Forge. My background, I'm also a PhD by training in virology, which is now a hot field to be in. After that, I did my postdoctoral work in Jude Samolsky's lab, ran the UNC Vector Core, built out the group that became Bamboo, was acquired by Pfizer, and then was the head of manufacturing at Voyager, and then was VP of manufacturing at Stride Bio, scaling up to 1,000-liter bioreactors in HEK293 system. So I have about 14 years of AAV experience, 10 of which in manufacturing GMP products. So not quite as many years overall as Tim, but very focused within AAV. So it's my current background. And I've been here at Forge for about 8 months now.
All right, well, to tell you a little bit about the Forge story and just some of the things that we've done, we've got a great video that will kick off part of our Q&A today.
During the first few months of 2021, we've had some big changes at our home, the Hearth. Our aim is to bring transformative gene therapies to patients with rare disease, and we've brought that same transformation to our facility. Construction of our first 4 GMP suites is nearly completed, with priority manufacturing slated to begin in Q3. With walkable ceilings and fully accessible utility systems, our space is easy to maintain and upgrade, reducing downtimes in production and ensuring that we're ready to adapt our space to meet our clients' needs in an ever-evolving industry. We've been expanding not only our manufacturing capabilities, but also our team. Our Forge family will be over 100 strong within the next few months. That's a family of hardworking, open, purpose-driven, and engaged people. And we're aiming everything that we have towards bringing hope and healing to those impacted by rare disease. With an experienced team and a mission that runs deep, we are relentlessly building our capacity to serve patients and clients. So once again, the question is, you in?
Thanks for the video. Why don't we start the Q&A by a little bit more of an introduction beyond the video in terms of what people should know about the Forge story.
Yeah, sure. I can kick us off. So Forge closed a $40 million Series A in July of 2020, led by Perceptive. And there was 4 of us and a dream and some previous experience about how gene therapy and gene therapy manufacturing worked, and saw this need to fit this, to help try to meet the manufacturing demand. There have been so many programs that have had such success when we look back over the 2015 to 2018 kind of IPO classes. And we thought to ourselves, well, we think that we can help solve a lot of those needs. And so that was really the vision that Forge was born under. And today, we're over almost 75 employees. We have a 175,000 square foot facility that you saw some pictures of in the video, and looking to expand our team even more as we continue to start to bring up the GMP facility. And David can talk a little bit about some of the work that we've done in the past 6 months about our build out and just what we have for the future.
Yeah, so we already have been working very diligently in the process development areas and created ignition cell line, which we'll talk about a little bit, as well as a proprietary helper plasmids, RepCap plasmids for triple transfection production of AAV. So been very busy. We've scaled up to 50 liters thus far, and then we have 500 liters that we'll be moving into and for GMP.
Yep, and I'll add that we've spent the past 9 months building out 4 GMP suites that are now about to go active, and the bioreactors in the GMP facility, and can certainly start taking clients and working on process development. But we'll talk more about that later.
Got it. So can you discuss a little bit more about what differentiates Forge as an AAV CDMO? What are the advantages you're bringing to the table?
Sure. So I'll start. So I think one of the differentiating factors, we talked about a little bit, cell line, that we have our own cell line that we can offer to clients, as well as our own helper plasmids, RepCap plasmids. I think another differentiating factor is that we can bring clients in really early. We offer research manufacturing or blaze manufacturing. So if a client comes in and they are still in lead candidate selection, then we can help them produce those smaller scale vectors and then transition them into their tox into GMP. So we can take clients anywhere along the pathway, along their journey, whether they're really early on, they have a gene and a dream, or they're ready to go into larger scale, later phase manufacturing and tech transfer in. So I think that's one advantage, and we're really, I think the differentiating factor is our expertise in AAV. And so Tim and I, as well as throughout the ranks of the organization, have really brought in AAV specific talent to make sure, whether it's at the bench or whether it's in the design or the analytical, that we really know what we're doing within the AAV space.
Yeah, and I'll focus on that for just a little bit as well. That you see, I think, a lot of different fundraisers going on, but having a leadership and a management team that actually has done hands-on gene therapy expertise is really a critical differentiator for success. Just one or two other things as well is that, we can also take clients' cell lines, and we can use those in our facility to scale those up. But to highlight a point that David talked about, many of us have also developed products. We're on the other side of that as well. And the challenge is when you actually started at one manufacturer at an academic facility, you want to try to bridge it over to a CDMO. Lots of bridging work and comparability studies. If you can come in now and use our 293 suspension cell line, you get to obviate all that and go right from one process start to finish.
Understood. So just wanted to touch on the big macro question of whether it's still a good time to be an AAV CDMO. Could you talk about the state of the industry in terms of capacity and whether you're still in a very opportune industry for manufacturing?
Yeah, something I love to talk about is just about how much demand is still out there for AAV manufacturing. Whether you look at the upcoming technologies really that are hot, cutting edge of prime editing or base editing, or even using some of the CRISPR therapeutics where sometimes you need 2 AAVs to deliver some of the machinery to be able to do the gene editing. You're seeing not a slowdown, but an actual increase in the number of AAV programs. And in just in the past really quarter and a half, we're in over 24 conversations with potential clients, many of them who have new programs that are being spun out. So, gene therapy isn't actually slowing down. It's actually, in many aspects, speeding up. And as you can look on clinicaltrials.gov or, for things like the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine, lots of stats that say most of the gene therapies that are out there that are viral-based are AAV. So just some of the things that kind of differentiate, but also think about how, the AAV space is really kind of growing.
I mean, in the past, we had heard of a potential capacity bottleneck. I mean, is it still significant that there's, I guess you basically said it, but can you talk on the issue of whether there's more demand than there is supply still?
Yeah, sure. We can use probably a relevant example and help me on the numbers. So if we think about the COVID vaccine, right? And you think about how many bioreactor runs does it take to be able to inject a few patients? I mean, you probably know these numbers a little bit better, but.
Yeah, so obviously you have to, for those vaccines, it's quite a number. and I forget it's 80,000 doses of the COVID vaccines to match one dose of AAV at a relatively low titer. So the demand is certainly there. Tim and I were on the other side of that not too long ago, as working in a company and using CDMOs. So I don't see the demand slowing down. We see it increasing. And if you look at the modeling that's been out there, as more and more approvals happen, and it's not just the clinical, it's also the commercial. And so being able to meet those commercial demands that we anticipate, or part of our own model here, is to be able to meet that.
Yeah, and it's not just the preclinical or the clinical demands, it's also the commercial demands. So our facility will be essentially commercially compliant towards the end of 2022.
Got it. And so, Tim, I think you mentioned the press about companies raising funds for gene therapy manufacturing. So what are your broader thoughts on this, and where's Forge specifically in terms of capital raising as well?
Well, we love to see our colleagues raising money, to advance, the aims of gene therapy. I mean, we try to take very much of a patients first approach. So any of the funding, I mean, again, we've kind of lived back in the days when trying to get gene therapy funding was challenging. And now, we're really happy to see, and for our colleagues that are also working in the CDMO space, we couldn't be happier. When we think about what Forge is going to be, and right now we're on par, with many of the other gene therapy CDMOs that are out there, and within a year, we'll have more suites. We'll be in the top 5 in the world with the number of suites that we have online. So, we love to see when other people are also raising money, because it means that there's support, and investors as well are more and more becoming aware of just how critical a piece gene therapy manufacturing controls. And I think Kathy High said it in February, that if you don't control your manufacturing, you can't control your destiny. So.
Right. You did, sorry, just to make sure, clarification, you said top 5 in terms of suites?
Yep.
So what does that mean in terms of your capacity in 2021 to take on GMP clients?
Sure. So as Tim mentioned, we have the 4 available suites now. We also have our process development activities that are ongoing. So we've been booking clients, and we still currently have availability to slot people within the 2021. It is filling up, but we currently do have additional capacity.
Yeah, so if you're a company that's got just a pre or post Series A, you may be looking to have some lead candidates evaluated. We can take those in and manufacture them and give it back to you to help basically again streamline your process. So able to do that, able to scale up to 50 liters and on route to 500.
Understood. So can you help me a little more on how you can help set up clients with these early stage programs for success?
Sure. So again, we some of the clients that have come in already and that we're working with, since we have the experience in AAV, some of the advice that we just are able to give within looking at their construct, looking at their vectors. Just this morning, somebody had sent me a vector, and can you make sure that our ITRs are correct? And so, I think those are, not every CDMO has experience in knowing how to evaluate the constructs and help the client really early on.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, and similarly, again, we've been through a number of the FDA, EMA regulatory meetings, and so we see a lot of guidance that comes out, just some of the nuances that you end up with. There's an element in the plasmid that might need to be taken out, or things like the ad helper plasmids. So recent feedback has been some of the ad helper plasmids that are out there may have some challenges. So we went out and made our own, David and his team, and are able to supply that to potentially for clients. So it's another differentiator, but ways to help startups, as well, kind of get into the space and really solve for some of the problems and the challenges that we've had to live through, over the years.
Right, and the importance of analytical development as well. So to be able to bring clients in, and we have that expertise in house to be able to help them as they develop their potency assays or develop other assays that are critical to move their projects along.
Got it. So, I mean, a little bit more, if you don't mind, on the ideal, let's say, partner that you could work with, or some of the attributes. I mean, there's this tension between what companies should do for themselves and what they should hand over to the CDMO. So could you talk a little bit more beyond what you've said already in terms of that dynamic and what sort of processes are ideal for you to work with in terms of AAV clients?
Yeah, it really depends, I think, on some of the scale that the programs need. If you're an I program and you have access to, an academic facility that can make, enough by GMP, you're going to be good to go through. You basically push your pain points to much farther in the development process. Just at that point, it'll make sense after you've got a phase 1/2 efficacy that you transition over, for your phase 3. For some programs, however, that need much larger scale, even at the toxicology grade, it's a challenge to find academic facilities, that'll basically be able to come in and make something affordable at scale. I don't know if you've got some other thoughts.
Sure.
there.
And again, we touched on it earlier, but being able to have those clients come in early and then they can start their process development, start their lead candidate selection. They're not changing process. They're not along the way. But as far as the ideal, client, I think we're able to work with anyone, and we enjoy both sides of it really early on, where we're teaching the client sort of along the way and helping them, as well as groups that are further along have in-house process development or tech transferring in, and that's a different dialogue at a higher level that we're able to we enjoy both sort of conversations and both sort of delivers within Forge.
Yeah, and I'll probably just add that when we think about the kind of the bell curve of the type of clients to talk with, it's the full spectrum. Where very, very early pre-stage, looking for lead candidates versus multi-billion-dollar companies that have an AAV program or two that are looking to expand but want to push forward. The bell curve is right in the middle. Where you see one or two small pipeline but have additional preclinical candidates. So usually you try to work with one of the leads. Otherwise, you work with a slew of preclinical programs that eventually go to clinical.
Understood. And so one of the big factors for success seems to be employee recruitment in terms of AAV manufacturing. So could you update on how that's going, where you're recruiting, and how many employees you have now?
Yeah, so I think we had commented that we were 4 people at the end of July last year, and now upwards of 75. So in about 10 months, we've hired a lot of people. We're pulling from all over the place, from around the world, but primarily from even from the coasts. People want to be a part of the story. They like the mission and the model that we've set up. It's been so far. It's been actually. It's a question we get asked often. It's like, tell us about your team, and we have over 400 applicants in our job database right now. So we don't seem to have a problem pulling people into Columbus. And the nice thing is that it's a great place to live. And we're surrounded by universities. I think Ohio is 7th, I think, in the nation, 6th in the nation for universities, and so we're able to pull a lot of the talent.
There's been a decent amount of AAV manufacturing in that region as well. Innovation, AAV innovation.
Yes. Yeah, I was just going to say the other thing too is bringing people with outside of AAV specifically, and then spending a lot of a good bit of time training and making sure that they know AAV very, very well. So again, a lot of universities here local that we've been able to bring people in from, as well as the coast, but from other MAB, monoclonal antibody, or other biologics as well, and then spend good time in training and how to make AAV and the specifics around AAV.
Yeah, and shout out to Jobs Ohio and the Grove City where we are. They've been certainly helpful in helping us identify places for people to live, and certainly different incentives for us to continue to build out and grow here. So, they're certainly very helpful in trying to help us recruit in as well.
Right. Regarding your current scale and capacity, can you dig into that a little bit more and then talk about the factors that might affect how much you want to scale up in the coming 5 to 10 years?
Sure. So currently we're already operating at small scale and shake flask and small scale bioreactors, as well as larger scale bioreactors up to 50 liters. 500 liters are here, so we'll be doing those runs in the next month. So we're already operating and producing vectors at that scale. So E15 to mid E15 VG currently. And so that's our current capacity. Our capacity the next year will get very large in the thousands of liters. And so, and then we'll again have 10 upstream suites to be able to with each of those with bioreactors to be able to support the incoming work.
And we can't tell you all the secret sauce yet, because we want to come back to next year's conference to be able to talk a little bit more about, what we're working on and just the progress that we've had in a year. But, well suited to scale up with multiple GMP suites over the next 12 to 18 months as well.
Understood. So since you've both been in the space for a while, I'm just curious what you think is underappreciated by investors about gene therapy manufacturing. And also just from your own experience, what are the important advancements that you've seen in recent years as well?
I'll take the first one. Sure, but make the advances. I think that one of the things that is probably missed a lot is just how difficult it is and how much time it takes, to basically build out a GMP facility, staff it, scale it, and put, all the quality systems and other systems in place, as well as the cost that it takes to do that. And, we're looking to hire probably upwards of about 300 people, total through the end of 2023. That's a lot of staff that you've got to work and train and bring up and do repeatedly. But I think one of the things that gets missed, it's very, in some respects, somewhat amusingly, it's easier to raise a lot of money and say you're going to put it in a hole in the ground versus actually, starting small, having a team in place that's done it before, and then building up and around there. So while I'd like to believe that money can solve all the problems, without the right team in place, the right facilities in place, you end up taking a lot more time and a lot more money.
And I'll address the technological advances, I guess, in the last few years. Probably the biggest one is the affinity resins that have come out that allow us to, 10 years ago it was challenging to have a scalable manufacturing system and to work out the conditions for every capsid, especially when new capsids are being developed every day. And so having resins that we can apply and use for purification of AAV has been critical.
Got it. And then just a couple more questions. One is, what's a big CMC challenge in the gene therapy space, and how is Forge positioned to help companies solve that problem?
So we operate under so there's two main models that you can work under. One is to do upstream and downstream in one suite. We actually use the other model, which is to split upstream and downstream into different suites. Because upstream development takes a lot longer compared to downstream, we've overbalanced our number of suites to upstream. So we solve for that problem, and what we get out of that is we get back is time. So often you'll hear people, companies will try to reserve a room, right? They want to say, look, we want to lock in a suite. What we do, what they're really trying to buy there is time. You're not trying to lock a room. You're trying to make sure that when you want your products manufactured, you can do it. You have the time to do it. So we've managed through that with a slightly different model where you can buy time, which is really time in the upstream rooms. And so we're able to help with the number of rooms that we have and forecasted. That'll help us meet, we think, all the demands out there in the space for us.
Yeah, the other sort of challenge is around the analytics, not to be underestimated, the time that it takes to develop, say a potency assay or other analytics. And so that's another benefit of Forge. And we have a strong team who's been in this field for a long time developing the analytics to support the work that's going on.
Yeah, and if there are groups that are interested, we will offer RCAF testing within the next 2 months. 2 months.
Thanks. And then are there upcoming innovations that might actually better enable your platform to meet or exceed goals? So this could be over 5 years, 10 years. What sort of innovations would be most helpful?
So we touched on it briefly. I think one of the bigger innovations of late has been larger and larger bioreactors that allow us to scale the systems, and so that those are things that we're able to employ here to meet the demand of the batch. So instead of making multiple batches, to be able to make one large batch to support the client's need.
Got it. And so I'll actually just add one more. I was intrigued by your comment of top 5 earlier. So, with that in mind, I've seen Brahmer get acquired, I think, for 1.7 billion, Paragon for 1.2 billion, and arguably AskBio is relevant if it's being acquired in the 2 to 4 billion range ultimately. But would you discuss whether, if in any way, those are relevant peers for Forge, or alternatively discuss what the hidden value might be in your company?
Yeah, I think that from the aspect of hidden value, I think that the leadership and the team about what's been demonstrated in the past is certainly one of the hidden values, that Forge brings. And I think that, I think a lot of the attention that's being paid to AAV manufacturing, there've been a lot of acquisitions, as you mentioned, from the aspect from the companies that you described. And so there's not a lot of standalone CDMOs actually out there. One of the things that we focus on right now is we are strictly focused on AAV manufacturing. We're not doing lentiviral, we're not doing anything else. And the reason is because we want to become our masters of that particular technology. So rather than try to do all of the things at once, we are very, very focused on being able to deliver high quality AAV product that has a value to it. And with the number of suites and certainly clients on board, there's always going to be a value assigned to that. So I think that when we look out over the next 6 to 12 months, I certainly think of us as on par with the number of rooms and the people and what we can produce out of here. So
Great. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, David.
Thanks, Gbola. Thank you. Yep. Take care.
We now conclude this session.